Hey everybody, it's Steph Mischuk with KillerSites.com. In this video blog, I'm going to answer a question that was recently put to me, and it's a common question. How do you get your first web programming or web design gigs? So the first thing you have to do, of course, is you have to build your skill sets. And the best way to build your skill sets is to build projects. Once you have your basic understanding of, HTML, CSS, PHP, or whatever language you choose to learn. That said, so to get your first projects, you might want to do, well, first thing I would do is your own personal website, right? You got to have a website. So that's a good way to start. You have to have that. Now, if you're a designer, and you're selling your skills mainly as a web designer, well, you better have a pretty good-looking website, slick. Doesn't necessarily mean fancy, but it should look really, really nice, right? Because that's what you're selling, your design skills. If you're a web programmer, it doesn't mean you can have a crappy-looking site, but you can have more of a minimal site stylistically, and because you're emphasizing your ability to build web applications, web programming, as opposed to design, right? So you got a little bit more leeway as a programmer in that regard. So the big question is, how do you get your first clients? Well, when you're first starting out, you have to pay your dues. And what does pay your dues mean? It means you might have to do one or two smallish freebie projects just to get your feet wet. And the fact of the matter, when you're new to the game, even though you study this stuff, you really develop your skills in building actual systems, building sites for people. And so you're worth a lot less in the beginning than you will be a year, 2 or 3 down the line. So it depends how quick you are. You may develop your skills much more quickly, and which means you'll be much more productive, which means you're much more valuable as a web professional, whether you're a designer or programmer. So you may have to do one or two freebies. And then, how do you get your freebies? Maybe a local butcher or a tailor or some friend of yours wants to start a small business, etc., etc. So you start building these sites. And when you have a couple under your belt and you can show that you're competent, then you should be able to start scoring some small little jobs here and there. Again, at first, you're going to have to suck on rocks a little bit and not get paid as you would later on. But that, again, it makes sense because you're a beginner. You're going to be much more prone to mistakes, and things are going to take you much more time than a highly experienced web professional. So that's why you got to charge less. It's just fair, it makes sense. But in time, and you'll know this as you develop, your skills will improve, your ability to produce work will increase quite quickly. So your time is going to be more valuable right from the start. How you value somebody's time should be, it's not always the case, but it should be, regardless of profession, based on your ability to be productive to do and how difficult the work that you're doing. It shouldn't be based on how old you are or how many years you've been sitting around on the job. That's just my opinion about things. So when it comes to web design, web programming, it's not an opinion. This is just the way it works. Fortunately, I believe in the meritocracy, meaning if you merit the higher pay, you should get the higher pay. You shouldn't get the higher pay because you're related to somebody or because you've been in the office doing the same thing for 20 years and you haven't improved your skill sets. No. It's a meritocracy, especially as a freelance web designer, web programmer. You will be rewarded the money if you can prove that you have the skills. So it makes sense in this field, in the web programming, in the web design field, to actually develop your skills to continuously improve, because you will see this translate into more jobs and higher paying jobs quickly enough, more so than so many other professions that have been corrupted or infected by things like by government involvement and so on. I don't want to get political, but I don't know. It doesn't make sense that a janitor who's wiping floors makes 20% more or 50% more than a junior janitor just because they've been around for 20 years. I know it sounds good, but how is that fair to everybody else? It's not fair. You know, if you can mop floors, you can mop floors. Nothing wrong with mopping floors. I did that, by the way. But the pay shouldn't be based on how old you are, how long you've been doing something. The pay should be based on your ability to produce quality work and on the skill set that you've accumulated. If you're a very sophisticated web programmer or designer and you can do really good work and you're highly productive because you're highly trained and capable, then you deserve to make the big money. But if you're a stumbler and it takes you time to build a basic page because you're just a beginner, then you should make less. That's just fair. And anyway, so there you go. You got to do freebie projects to get your first gigs. You got to expect to make a little less at first, and as your skills develop, the number of projects you're going to get is going to increase quite a bit, and the amount of money you can charge per hour is going to increase quite a bit. Again, I'm talking more or less from the perspective of freelancing and dealing with small business, although this loosely applies if you're going to go work for somebody. If you're a junior coming to work for a firm, you're going to make less than the senior guys who are really competent and capable, and as it should be. But, you know, in good firms and progressive firms, if you work hard and you develop high-level skills, you will get paid accordingly, from what I've seen in the field. So that's it. All right, we'll talk soon.